Hello, folks, and welcome back to EUSN, where we've got the live coverage of the Star Wars Expanded Universe Video Games March Madness. Folks, we have the results for the first round, and they are wild. We've got upsets, we've got one sided, absolute brawls, we've got back and forth, tight races, and of course, we have chaos. I'm your host, Dylan. Unfortunately, Matt could not join us, our usual co host, as he is actually interviewing for a position for the event coordinator of his local Mardi Gras parade. So really thankful for that, as he is a big supporter of his local Mardi Gras parade. So wish him the best of luck there. But in his place, we do have two wonderful guests, same as that were here last week of the Twinsons Foundation. First off, Brian, how you doing?
Doing great. Excited to hear that Matt's keeping busy out there with that Mardi Gras parade. I know there were several in that area, and I'm kind of curious to see which one he ends up the head of.
Mm, very curious myself. And then we also have Ryan, son of Luke as well, also from Twinsons Foundation. Ryan, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. Always great to be here.
All right, fantastic. So let's get right into our first matchup. This was our number one seeded Rogue Squadron versus Rebellion. Now, in this one, voting was, of course, optional for every single matchup. You could choose to abstain if you didn't want to vote or didn't feel like you had a good opinion on either of the two games. So, about 97% of the people who voted total voted on this matchup. So, this was a pretty popular matchup. Say here. How do you guys expect? I think we were all in agreement that Rogue Squadron should have took this matchup pretty handily. Do I have that correct?
Yeah, this was a pretty straightforward match for us to decide or take an examination of, with it being the 116 matchup for the core worlds. We did not think that Rebellion had much of a chance, if I recall correctly. With Star Wars Rogue Squadron being perhaps the weakest of the one seeds, it was still a pretty powerful game.
Hmm.
Yeah, Rogue Squadron had the nostalgia and the name recognition, I think, over Rebellion. So it seemed pretty simple that Rogue Squadron could be the potential victor in this case.
Yeah, and we were, of course, right on this one. Rogue Squadron with 94% of the vote here, taking it quite handily. And actually, we do have this year data on how the votes were coming in over time. So as you can see here, this is both of their voting percentages over time. Rogue Squadron took the early lead. Rebellion kind of tried to make a little bit of a comeback early on, but Rogue Squadron just kept being the clear odds and odds favorite. So Rogue Squadron moves on pretty handed, pretty easy victory for them. If you're a Rogue Squadron fan, how confident are you moving on in this tournament with both this turnout and with the people that voted for Rebellion against you?
Well, I would say it's boding pretty well for the other two games in the series, with Rogue Squadron 2 and Rogue Squadron 3 still being in the other quadrants of the Galaxy's events here. Rebellion actually getting some votes against Rogue Squadron was a little surprising, but I was not too surprised to see it under 10%.
Yes, Rogue Squadron had a fairly easy layup to start with. It's definitely going to get some harder matches as time goes on, but a good start, and Rogue Squadron fans should be pretty happy about this.
Yes, and speaking of harder matchups, this next one was a little bit more of a tricky matchup. In the two Rebel Assault games, Rebel Assault 2 and Rebel Assault 3. This one had a bit lower turnout. Only 89% of the people who voted in this tournament picked for this matchup. So I believe in this one we had the higher seed Rebel Assault 2 taking it over the original. Is that correct?
That was how I predicted this particular round to go. That's correct.
I lean slightly towards Rebel Assault 2, but overall I thought this could be pretty much anyone's game for this particular matchup.
Mm. Well, votes came in, and it was actually a fairly easy victory, but still 22% of the vote, almost a quarter of the vote, coming in for Rebel Assault 2 here. And as you can see, votes over time, Rebel Assault 2 had the early lead. Rebel Assault kind of came back, but they could never quite bridge that gap. One thing I'm looking at, though, with this is only 89% of the respondents voted for this matchup. Do you think that bodes well for Rogue Squadron coming up in the next round, as Rebel Assault 2 now has to face on Rogue Squadron? That apathy of voters, or maybe not even knowing this matchup of these two games, might hurt it going forward in this tournament.
Well, there's a lot to say about this data here. I think it's kind of interesting that we actually had as many as 89% of the respondents come in on some games that are a little bit on the older side for this particular list, being in the early to mid 90s. The dichotomy, the disparity between the two games, though, being only 22% to 77%, I had thought it would be closer than that. So it's very interesting. It makes me wonder if just that many more people genuinely cared about Rebel Assault 2 more than Rebel Assault, or if there was something else at play here.
It does seem that Rebel Assault 2, for whatever reason, had a much stronger advantage against the original Rebel Assault. We discussed reasons this may be in the last matchup. We were talking about how the cutscenes of Rebel Assault 2 were a little more advanced than Rebel Assault's. It's difficult to gauge why people voted the way they did, but in this case, definitely Rebel Assault's 2 game. And judging by the results, it looks like there wasn't even a chance that Rebel Assault 2 had to worry against fighting its previous game in the series.
Yeah, so far these have been fairly one-sided. This one a little closer than the last. Moving on to our next matchup, this one being the 5-12 matchup. Folks, every year it seems a 12 will beat a 5, so will this one be 97% of the respondents actually did vote in this matchup of Jedi Knight Mysteries of the Sith versus Force Commander. And I believe this was another one. We were all in agreement that Jedi Knight Mysteries of the Sith should take this one quite handily. Am I correct on that?
Yes, this was a pretty straightforward matchup to us. I had hopes personally that Force Commander could put up a fight here, but they were up against a game that included Mara Jade and Kyle Katarn as the main characters, and I just did not see that going well for Force Commander.
Yes, with the previous 2 entries, with the Rogue Squadron against Rebellion and the Rebel Assaults games going against each other, this was the first matchup that I felt confident in saying declaring a victor. I believe, yeah, definitely Mysteries of the Sith is what we were predicting to be the victor in this case.
Well, that prediction was, of course, correct. Mysteries of the Sith, fairly easy victory at 82% of the vote share. You do mention that this game has Mara Jade in it, who, of course, was the winner of the very first ever Star Wars Expanded Universe tournament. Do you think some of that Mara Jade support came in to help the Jedi Knight series? Or do you think is the Jedi Knight series overall good enough to stand on its own even without that little bump?
I think it's actually going to be a strong bit of both. There is no doubt that this is a very strong 5-seeded game. It has some potential to run deep into this tournament. Although it's very interesting to see how early on it was very even, but over time it looks like things just evened out the way we thought it would, with a whole pretty big disparity there between the 82%, 17%. Not quite as big as the 116 though, so that's good to see. Maybe the seeding wasn't too far off.
Yeah, these early votes can be a little bit because at this point there's only a handful of votes. So if the first person votes for one and the second votes for the other, it'll look a little bit closer. Really, it's around this area and really back here when you start seeing them meet that you can really tell when something has a lot of support. But Brian, you were going to say something?
Yes, just going off what you were saying, Dylan, being a Jedi Knight game and a game where you play as Mara Jade, pretty big advantages that it had over Force Commander.
Yep. So Mysteries of the Sith does in fact move on, and it will be facing the winner of this matchup, Empire at War versus Clone Wars lightsaber duels, with about 97%. Seems to be about the number most of these go for. Folks, I believe we all had Empire at War as the clear odds-on favorite, but the Clone Wars games being kind of a wild card in how much the TCW properties would fare with how popular TCW is. Maybe stealing some matchups. Do I have that correct? And that was our read on this situation?
Yes, the only other thing to say here was that the Clone Wars was on a very popular Nintendo Wii system, so it did have a potentially wide audience. That said, I know we all had Empire at War winning this one, as we did believe that the seeding was accurate on this particular matchup.
Definitely in the Empire at War camp on my end, but I did not want to underestimate the Clone Wars fans, the Wii fans. Both of those are a pretty hefty audience that could put up a matchup against Empire at War potentially, but I don't know if they have what it takes to take on the Empire at War series. But we'll have to see.
Yeah, and on that, we were of course correct. Empire at War, fairly easy 88% victory here over Clone Wars lightsaber duels. As you can see, folks, this actually was a completely one-sided. Empire at War held on to about 100% of the vote for quite some time before some Clone Wars fans got in there and made it a little bit more respectable. How does this look coming up for the other Clone Wars games? Is this just a case of Empire at War is too strong of a contender with too big of a fan base, or should the Clone Wars fans be worried coming up at a fairly lackluster of only 11% showing for one of their games?
The Clone Wars should be a little bit concerned about that. That said, in a tournament with as many high value players as this one has, it's very interesting to see that it's still garnered more than 10% of the vote. So maybe a little glimmer of hope, but it's still not looking great for the Clone Wars.
I would agree with that, Brian. Ultimately, I'd say this matchup says more about the popularity of Empire at War than it does about TCW. We'll have to see how the other games fare moving on. I'd just like to point out that I've noticed that a lot of these games so far have been pretty one-sided up against its competitor.
Yeah, the seeding seems to definitely be a little bit more accurate this year, not like last year. I think last year we had 9 upsets in the first round, but so far we're pretty much about halfway through this matchup, and we've had no upsets. So Empire at War will, of course, be moving on to face Mysteries of the Sith. So we'll see how that one goes in our breakdown coming up. But in the next matchup, we have the number 3 seeded Battlefront against the number 14 seeded Galaxy's Jump to Lightspeed with 97% of respondents. Now, this is a kind of a tough one and almost unfortunate for Galaxies that they got so lowly rated by the committee here, going up against one that I think a lot of people thought is a heavy favorite, at least series-wise. Do you see this? Did you guys see this one at all being close, or the Galaxies fans would come in and make this interesting, or did you guys think this would be a clear sweep for Battlefront?
We all had Battlefront winning this one, I believe, pretty handily. Interesting to note that both games were from the same year. I did not catch that in our preview of this matchup. But definitely catering to a very different subset of gamers, with one being a massive multiplayer online game and the other being more of a single person or maybe even split screen experience for players to come in and enjoy. That said, it wouldn't surprise me if the Galaxies community got a hold of this tournament and decided to vote heavily in favor of their game. But I still see this as being Battlefront's win in all likelihood.
I agree with that, Brian. I'd say Battlefront definitely probably the clear favorite in this matchup. This match is very dependent on whether or not those Galaxies fans turn up. If they didn't, I'd say Battlefront has a pretty easy shot.
Well, it appears that the Galaxy fans did not turn up nearly as what they did. 94%, very clean, easy victory for Battlefront, as you can see the votes here. A little bit of a Galaxy's push early on, but Battlefront just kept that lead and kept going. Any thoughts, reactions to this? Little disappointed in the Galaxies fans, as Jump to Lightspeed seemed to be the more popular of the expansions, or do you think they've still got a shot coming up in these later rounds?
My reaction to this is that Battlefront as a series is looking extremely strong in this whole tournament as a result of this particular matchup, going so heavily in favor of Battlefront, with Galaxies not even managing a full 6% of the vote. That does not look good for its other entries into this tournament.
Battlefront is definitely a juggernaut in this match. This one does surprise me. I didn't think it would be as wide of a margin as it is. I thought there would be a little more popularity for Galaxy's camp. That did not happen, it looks like. I think Galaxy's fans should be pretty worried.
Yeah, definitely there. I definitely agree with you there. Battlefront being such a strong contender, though, I think Galaxies was unfortunately set to failure from the beginning, but we'll have to see when the later other Galaxies games and expansions come up. Moving on, so far again, pretty standard tournament. Almost all their favorites have won, and quite decisively. But we have another matchup here in LEGO Star Wars: The Video Game, the original, our 6th seed, against a Knights of the Old Republic expansion and Knights of the Fallen the Old Republic expansion in Knights of the Fallen Empire, coming in at 11th seed. 94% of the respondents voted on this, so a little more abstentions than the other categories we talked about. I believe we all had the LEGO Star Wars Video Game winning this one. Am I correct?
That's accurate. We saw that game being far too popular to be defeated by, albeit a very good expansion, but an expansion to the Old Republic MMO. That said, again, same deal happens with our last particular matchup. This being a player, a massive multiplayer online game, it has the potential to get a lot of votes very quickly if those fans caught on to this this tournament.
Yeah, I think this one, the results of this one is going to impact later on because we do have Old Republic expansions later in the matchup. We do have Lego Star Wars games in the matchup. I want to know if Lego Star Wars brings the heat against any potential future opponent. It is a popular series, but as Brian was saying, the Knights of the Fallen Empire was a pretty good expansion, and this should also bring a question to the table. Do the expansions of the Old Republic specifically have a chance in this tournament to move forward?
Well, I think this is a very good litmus test as to what exactly chance they had, because Knights of the Old Republic did make it fairly close.
Wow.
This was a very close matchup, and not only did they make it close, they were leading for a good chunk of the beginning. We had a couple lead changes here. Lego Star Wars eventually, of course, running away with it, but this was an incredibly hotly contested matchup for the first day of the voting. Does that surprise any of you?
This was significantly closer than I expected it to be, but this also tells me the Old Republic fans out there did take notice of this tournament, and they made this one close. It's going to be very interesting to see what impact this has on the rest of our first round results.
Yeah, I thought ultimately it would go to Lego Star Wars, but as I was just saying, much like the chart shows, I went back and forth saying the Knights of the Fallen Empire could come ahead, Lego Star Wars could come ahead, and it looks like just barely squeaked by. This is the first close match we have in this tournament so far. Very interesting results.
Yeah, very close matchup. Close all the way, even at the end. Knights of the Republic, Knights of the Fallen Empire tried to bring it back, but at that point the lead was too great. So Lego Star Wars moves on, and next we have our second to last matchup in Galactic Battlegrounds, the Clone Campaigns versus Battlefront Renegade Squadron. 91%, so fairly low turnout on this one, coming from a RTS clone of essentially Age of Empires versus a PSP game. I believe we had this one as a very interesting matchup that I don't think any of us could have really had a good solid call, because this could go either way. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, we felt this one was going to be a very close match between the Battlefront franchise and Galactic Battlegrounds being a very popular RTS game at the time, although this in case it was the expansions. Both are beloved. That said, we did notice that the PSP version of Battlefront probably didn't have as wide a reach as Galactic Battlegrounds being on the personal computer, so should be very interesting.
Yeah, as I recall in my pre-match analysis, I made the point of saying that every time I thought of a pro for another game, I thought another advantage that the other one had. So I kind of went back and forth myself. I did not have a clear victor in this case.
Well, it appears that our own confusion as to who would win prevailed with the voters, because not even they knew who they liked more. 50-50 split. Wow. This one was Renegade Squadron did have a good lead, but at the very end, Galactic Battlegrounds did come back. There were actually 2 votes within the last hour that each offset each other to cause this tie, the very first tie in the expanded universe March Madness tournament history. I think we all said that we thought this could go either way, and now we're down to a coin flip.
So let's recall the rules that the tournament had put forward for us on this one. The committee has said that the EUSN is responsible for determining the final winner on this one. Is that correct?
That is correct. In the event of a tie of the votes, the winner will come down to a flip of this coin.
Okay.
Now, as you can see, 91% of the respondents didn't vote in this match, so literally any one of those people that abstained in this could have possibly flipped it. So if you feel really strong about a game, make sure you're voting, because otherwise you can get stuff like this happens. But for the sake of consistency throughout the remaining of the tournament, I think it is only fair that the underdog, in this case Renegade Squadron, would be the Rebel Alliance crest, and the favorite being, of course, the Empire. So I will flip this coin 3 times in a row, and on the third one, I will reveal the winner. So here we go. 1, 2. We have Galactic Battlegrounds Clone Campaigns
So this
on
one
top.
ended up not being an upset, but only by the most skinniest of margins possible. Very interesting to see both games supported very evenly in this tournament. Should be interesting to see what impact that has on their respective franchises and other quadrants.
Yeah, because
Fascinating.
we do have another matchup of these exact two same series, a PSP Battlefront game against a Galactic Battlegrounds game coming up in a couple brackets. So we'll see how that goes. Finally, we have the final matchup: the number 2 seed versus the 15 seed, Jedi Academy versus Jedi Arena. This one, 100% of the respondents, everyone very much interested in this one. Folks, I believe we all had Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy taking this one quite easily. Am I correct on that one?
100% accurate. We did not see this being close at all. Very interesting to see that there was 100% of response on this. Not a single person who voted in this tournament decided not to have a say on this one. And that could mean a lot of good things for Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy. Or I suppose Jedi Arena, though. In all likelihood, Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy will have those votes.
Our voters seem very, very confident in this matchup. They had a clear winner in mind, and they picked one. I agree again with Brian. I think, yeah, Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy takes this. I think it'd be surprising if Jedi Arena was able to pull up any sort of upset against Jedi Knight or come anywhere close to it.
Well, not only could Jedi Arena not pull off the upset, they couldn't even pull off a vote. Clean sweep here by Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy. With some other Jedi Knight games, we have two fairly easy matchups. Of course, Mysteries of the Sith kind of made it a little bit close, but the clean sweep of Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy, does this say more to the Jedi Knight series or more to the effect that Jedi Arena is simply just too old of a game that not a lot of people really know or play?
It's probably a little bit of that. It's a little bit disappointing to see that Jedi Arena could not garner a single vote, meaning that its 15 seed wasn't even represented well, as we hadn't, or obviously our 16 seed in this Core Worlds did manage to get a few votes, even against Rogue Squadron. That makes me wonder exactly how powerful Jedi Knight Jedi Academy is, and if we eventually see a matchup between the 1-2 seed of this bracket, just what kind of bloodbath are we going to be witnessing?
I would be kind of surprised if there was anyone who preferred Jedi Arena over Jedi Knight Jedi Academy. And it looks like, yeah, with 100% of the respondents all responding 100% of the way for Jedi Knight Jedi Academy, I more or less predicted it would be that close, but not exactly 100%. But if there was a Jedi Arena fan out there, they did not turn up to this round.
Yeah, easy victory there. So Jedi Knight Jedi Academy moves on. It'll be facing Galactic Battlegrounds Clone Campaigns in the next round. But folks, that does it for the Core Worlds. This tournament, of course, is sponsored by the Twin Suns Foundation. They have a done fundraiser going on right now, which I believe is almost a quarter of the way funded, if that's correct, to bring books to the middle school you see here, Galloway Township Middle School. So go ahead and check them out at twin-suns.net/donate. And folks, anything else you guys have to say about these matchups or the up-and-coming donation?
Just want to say thank you to everybody who's donated so far. Please share this information around with everybody as we are trying to hit our goal before the end of March. We will be continuing to update throughout these videos, I would imagine, and stay close attention to the Twin Suns Foundation social media sites, and we'll keep you updated there as well.
A big thank you to everyone who's donated to the cause so far. And even if you don't donate, if you share the link around, thank you to you as well. Very much appreciated.
Yes, thank you to everyone who donated. So, folks, that is it for the results of the Core Worlds. We'll be back in a few hours right here on the expandeduniverse.net with a breakdown of the second round of the Core Worlds. So, until then, I've been Dylan. Again, Brian and Ryan signing off.